Hello, this is Vipul Purohit, and you're watching my YouTube channel. My dear friends, in this particular session, I'm going to discuss about environmental chemistry part 2. If you remember, I've already uploaded a video with the title of environmental chemistry, but part 1, wherein I explained you about the oxides of carbon. Here also you can see it's oxides of carbon. But then the difference is, my dear friends, in part 1, I specifically concentrated on carbon monoxide. Now here in this particular video, I'm going to concentrate on the another prominent oxide of carbon, and that is carbon dioxide. So we begin with, my dear friends, with respect to carbon dioxide. So whenever we start with the topic, obviously we start with the introduction of that. So here we start with the introduction of carbon dioxide. The first important point is all organic fuels, means obviously it's carbon containing, will produce carbon dioxide on complete combustion. Now this is, my dear friends, a difference between carbon monoxide and carbon dioxide. When there is incomplete combustion, it results in the formation of carbon monoxide. But when it's complete combustion, then it results in carbon dioxide. Now, combustion, in simple terms, is heating of a substance in presence of oxygen. So, availability of oxygen is the most important requirement for a combustion process to take place. Next is, as far as the property is concerned, it is a colorless and a tasteless gas. We are talking about carbon dioxide at the moment, my dear friends. It comprises only a very minute fraction of the gases in the atmosphere. As you all be knowing it, that there are two major gases which are a part of atmosphere. First is nitrogen, which is comprising around 78%, and oxygen, which is around 21%. So both together constitute around 99%. 1% are other gases. So amongst them, one of the fraction is going to be carbon dioxide. Now this carbon dioxide gas is with a formula of H2CO3. So I hope so far so good. We move to the next slide. We talk about origin of carbon dioxide. Now, from where does carbon dioxide originates? Now, origin, when we talk about, there are two possibilities. One is natural, the other is man-made. So when we go into the natural one, it's the volcanic activities which are going to be responsible for emitting carbon dioxide gas in the atmosphere. Next is, most of the carbon dioxide produced is precipitated as calcium carbonate and magnesium carbonate in water and soil. So calcium oxide and magnesium oxide, these are most common compounds. So when they interact with carbon dioxide, results in the formation of solid calcium carbonates and the magnesium carbonates. And hence, because they are solid, so they are precipitated. The third most important origin is, as I already mentioned, is burning of fuels, wood, and that also is responsible for the release of carbon dioxide gas. Now we will be discussing about the sources of carbon dioxide. Now, when it comes to the sources of carbon dioxide, the three primary sources are, the first one, as I already mentioned, is the complete, I stress on this word, complete combustion of fuel and carbon containing compounds, and as well as carbonates. I was referring to magnesium carbonate and the calcium carbonate. So when I'm going to heat it, it releases carbon dioxide. The automobile exhaust, they also are significant contributors towards the carbon dioxide gas. The next one is the biological decay, or what we call it as the decomposition, and the release from the ocean These are the two natural processes for the formation of carbon dioxide. My dear friends, why the sources becomes very important is because see, we are looking at carbon dioxide from the pollutant point of view. So it's like a disease. So when we visit a doctor, when we are suffering from a disease, so the first step, what the doctor does is diagnosis. Try to understand what the disease is. And once the diagnosis is clear, and then the treatment is going to be effective, and the patient is on the positive road to recovery. The same thing is over here as well. We need to first of all understand what are the sources of carbon dioxide. Once we understand that very well, then we can have effective measures to minimize it. Okay, so these are the major sources of carbon dioxide. We move to the next part. And that is, we talk about the reactions, the fate with respect to carbon dioxide. The increasing amount of carbon dioxide can lead to, number one, increase in the Earth's temperature. The Earth's surface temperature is going to increase with the increase in the level of carbon dioxide. Now, how exactly, that I'm going to explain you in the later part of this presentation. Havoc in terms of changes in the world climate. There's going to be abrupt changes in the world climate. And you can see that I've used the word world. So you get a realization that this particular effect, which is going to take place, is something which is global. Okay, it doesn't have any geographical boundary. Melting of glaciers. Okay, there are icebergs, and when you melt ice, it gives you water. So here we are talking about glaciers and the icebergs and all. So it's going to be in huge, massive amount. And as a result of which, the amount of water which is going to be produced is going to be very, very large. And that is going to result in flooding of the coastal plains, flooding of the cities which are at the low-lying regions. Examples can be given as the city of Bangkok, Mumbai, Boston. Okay, small countries like Bangladesh will submerge under the flooding. Changes in the biological activity of the oceans. In fact, when you talk about the oceans, it serves as the most important sink of carbon dioxide. Sink means accumulation. So the major accumulation of carbon dioxide is in the ocean. Another sink of carbon dioxide is the living green plants. Now, my dear friends, when I talk about living green plants, so I hope you're getting an idea of what I'm referring to. Yes, you guessed it right. We're talking about photosynthesis. So photosynthesis is a process by means of which the carbon dioxide gets converted into oxygen. But here, my dear friends, I want you all to take a note of it. And this is a vicious cycle. Now, how that is going to be? And that is, when carbon dioxide gets converted into oxygen, the amount of oxygen, which is the primary requirement for the process of combustion. So this oxygen supports combustion. And when we talk about combustion of a fuel containing carbon, so it will result once again into carbon dioxide. All right, so this is what a vicious cycle, which I am referring to. And hence, there has to be a proper balance between the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed and the amount of oxygen produced. We now consider, my dear friends, about the control measures. As I was discussing about the sources, so once we understand the sources of carbon dioxide, then of course, we can comment on the control techniques as well. So how it can be controlled? We cannot minimize it, and nor we should do it, all right? So we can only control it, or we can minimize it. We cannot eliminate it completely. So reducing its release from the industrial processes. Now there are, my dear friends, various industrial processes taking place. So whereby carbon dioxide is produced as a byproduct. And if that goes into the atmosphere, then the concentration of carbon dioxide increases. So there has to be some modification being brought about. in the mechanism of that industrial processes so as to minimize the emission of carbon dioxide. Or probably certain changes can be brought about in such a way that carbon dioxide, though it is being produced as a byproduct, but immediately there should be another chemical reaction taking place such that it can be absorbed, so that its release into the atmosphere can be minimized. Okay, so this is one way of minimizing or controlling the concentration of carbon dioxide. We go into the second part, and that is controlling vehicular exhaust. As I already said, automobile exhaust is one of the primary contributor towards the release of carbon dioxide. So there has to be a modification in the design of the exhaust so that minimum amount of carbon dioxide is released into the atmosphere. Next, as I already told you about the rate of photosynthesis, if you increase the rate of photosynthesis, large amount of carbon dioxide is getting converted into oxygen, and that can be done by increasing the forest cover. When we talk about green plants, so you must have heard about various campaigns being carried out by the governmental as well as the non-governmental organization about tree plantation. But as I said earlier, that there has to be a proper balance being maintained between the amount of carbon dioxide absorbed and the oxygen which is going to be evolved in the atmosphere, because this becomes a vicious cycle. So we need to make sure that whatever oxygen that is going to be released in the atmosphere as a result of photosynthesis must not be available for the combustion of fuel. Otherwise, it will once again result in increase in the concentration of carbon dioxide. So that balance has to be kept in mind. All right, so I hope so far you are understanding all these points, my dear friends. We go into the next part, and that is, we talk about an effect which is much more common, and that is all about greenhouse effect. Now, what exactly this greenhouse effect is all about? I'll just try to explain you is as simple way as possible. We start with the solar energy or the sun's energy, which falls on the surface of the earth. Now, the part of it is going to be absorbed, and some part of it is re-radiated. So the amount of energy which is absorbed is coming from the sun reaching the earth's surface. And the amount of energy which is re-radiated means it is going from the earth's surface back into the space. And there has to be a balance being maintained between the absorbed radiation and the re-radiated radiations. And it is this balance, my dear friends, which is responsible for maintaining the Earth's surface temperature within a particular range. And when this temperature is being maintained within a particular range, and hence we say life is possible, life exists on Earth. Now, there are some excess of greenhouse gases which is going to disturb this balance. The four major culprits, the four major greenhouse gases, as you can see, are methane, the Cfcs, which are called as chlorofluorocarbons, carbon dioxide, and water vapor. These are the four main greenhouse gases which are going to disturb this balance. And those are called as greenhouse gases. And how exactly they play a role, that I'll try to explain it. What they actually do is, they allow the near IR rays, which are coming from the sun, and it allows it to fall or to be absorbed on the surface of the earth. When I talk about IR rays, I'm talking about infrared radiations. When it comes to, with respect to the wavelength, the IR region is being divided into three regions: the near IR, the mid IR, and the far IR. So here you're talking about the near IR and its radiations. And radiations, my dear friends, is energy. And energy means it's related to temperature. So it allows these near IR rays to be absorbed on the surface of the earth. But at the same time, it does not allow those absorbed IR radiations to go back into the space. So in other words, they are responsible for trapping these IR radiations. And as I already mentioned, that they are related to energy and they are related to temperature. So as a result of which, the Earth's temperature increases and the balance which I was talking about, that gets disturbed. So this effect of trapping of the IR rays in the atmosphere, thereby resulting in the increase in the Earth's surface temperature, is basically called as greenhouse effect. All right, so I hope you have understood what is exactly the greenhouse effect. We now go into the consequences of this greenhouse effect, and accordingly we'll decide whether it's going to be harmful or whether it's going to be harmless. So the first point is melting of Antarctic, Greenland ice sheets and breaking of icebergs into oceans. As I already mentioned, these icebergs are going to be massive, so resulting in large amount of water. And as I said, it will result in submerging of the low-lying cities such as Bangkok and Boston and Mumbai, and countries like Bangladesh, which is a very small country, will submerge. The total amount of the global rainfall will increase, whereas some regions will receive less rainfall. So in simple words, the amount of rainfall on the global level will be non-uniform. So in areas there will be very high rainfall, it will result in flooding. In areas there is very less rainfall, it results in drought. And both of them are going to be harmful conditions. Tropical storms and the hurricanes will be stronger and more frequent, and so more devastating. All right, the storms which are there, the gusty winds with a very high speed. Okay, these occurrences going to take place on a frequent basis, and that is also going to be with a very high intensity, and that is going to bring about a lot of damage to the life as well as property. The number of days having intense showers and high temperatures will increase. So that means we are slowly heading towards extreme conditions of climate. That means the summers becomes more hotter, the winters become more colder, and during the rainy season there are large amount of rains. The ocean temperature will change, affecting the marine life adversely. Now here in this case, what happens is the water bodies which are there as a part of the ocean. So when the temperature increases, so the water which contains dissolved oxygen, it's going to be around 3% is what is the solubility of oxygen in water. That is what we call it as dissolved oxygen. So this around 3% of dissolved oxygen is sufficient enough for aquatic life. That means I'm talking about the aquatic plants as well as animals. But with the increase in the temperature due to the greenhouse effect, the level of dissolved oxygen decreases, as a result of which it is going to severely affect the aquatic life. The amount of available dissolved oxygen becomes less. Okay, and there will be a question mark on the survival of the marine animals as well as plants. Human health will be affected by this global warming. Yes, of course, because there are extreme conditions. So whenever there's going to be changes in climate, so there are respiratory problems taking place. Okay, coughing, sneezing. Okay, next, there are some heart diseases also. People suffering from high blood pressure. So these has become very common instances due to the changes in the climatic pattern. Some areas may become more humid or wetter, where some areas will become very dry. All right. So from all these consequences, I'm very sure that you are very convinced that this greenhouse effect is going to be harmful. And hence, it is our responsibility to make sure that this effect is minimized. Now, how to minimize this effect? Very simple. As I already mentioned, there are 4 greenhouse gases which are responsible for this effect. And hence, the concentration of these gases has to be minimized. And out of the 4, 3 of them are the major culprits. The first one is methane. Okay, we need to make sure that the concentration of methane is reduced. We can carry out its combustion. So combustion of methane results in carbon dioxide and water. All right. Next is we talk about CFCs, that is chlorofluorocarbons. They have a cooling property. They are called as coolants, and therefore they were being used in refrigerators and the air conditions and all. But now, because this is a global impact, and hence a consensus, a treaty is being signed at the global level to ban the use of CFCs. And they are now being replaced by nanomaterials. nanomaterials also have the same cooling effect, but at the same time, it's not going to contribute towards the greenhouse effect. So in this way, the CFCs can be brought under control. The next we talk about, and of course, is carbon dioxide, which I have already mentioned in this video, that how we can minimize it. So if we are in a situation to minimize methane, CFCs, and carbon dioxide, automatically we can minimize the greenhouse effect. And hence, the harmful effect can be minimized. So I hope you have understood this very well. That's it then. This is what about carbon dioxide. This is the second segment of oxides of carbon. In the first case, I explained you about the carbon monoxide, whereas in this video, I explained you about carbon dioxide, and both of which are being very clear to all of you. If at all you have missed the first part, no worries. You will find the link of the first part of the video in the description box of this video. So please go through it. Okay, so I'm sure both the parts are very clear. Thank you so very much for being with me. If you have understood this, then please do like this video, do subscribe my channel. And until I see you next time, till then, take care. Bye-bye.